Welcome to Student Access 101, where we discuss critical conversations in the pursuit of equitable education for those students that are underrepresented. And today we have an amazing show today. I can't wait to get a chance to talk to our guest. She is an amazing person. She has been someone that I've known for quite some time, and I can't wait to introduce you all to her. But what I really wanted to talk about today was how student access is not just about access in the classroom. Student access goes beyond the classroom. And so today we're going to be talking about reproductive health and how students oftentimes, depending on what their background is, they may not have access at home with their parents to reproductive health care. So it's important that we have resources that our students can take advantage of, especially our low income students. And the company that we're going to be talking about today, Planned Parenthood, that's what they specialize in. They specialize in working with students and others who need reproductive health care. And so I am your host. If you don't know me, I'm Dr. Tameka Ellington. I am an educator, a researcher. I'm an empowerment speaker, and I'm a lover of all things educational advancement and growth. Several years ago, I boarded a shuttle bus, in fact, that was soon to take me over to the Kent State University fashion show. Many of you all know that I was a fashion professor for many, many years. And so I boarded this shuttle bus. We were preparing to go and view the annual fashion show. The Kent State University School of Fashion does an annual fashion show every year, and it's always a great show. And so I boarded the bus, and I boarded the bus, and I soon saw that there was a few seats left on the bus. And when I got on, I saw that there was a seat left next to this beautiful brown woman. And so I sat right next down to her, and she introduced herself. And at the time, she was working as the VP for marketing and communications with Kent State University Public Relations. And when she introduced herself, she told me that her name was Iris. And irises are my favorite flowers. I've always loved irises. And she and I struck up a conversation, and we became friends after that. And I was just captivated by her intelligence. I was captivated by her power and her grace. And having a Black female in serving as a role as VP, Vice President at Kent State University was a really big deal. And she probably doesn't know this, but she really inspired me to want to go into administration. And so before I left Kent State, I left in August of 2021. And so before I left, I actually had the opportunity to serve as assistant dean for 2 years. And this particular woman, she was one of the reasons why I decided to make that decision to serve in that capacity. And I could not be more happier to get an opportunity to connect back with her, because it's been a very long time since she and I have had conversation. So I'm going to just jump right on in and tell you all about her. So our guest today is Dr. Iris Harvey. She's president and CEO of Planned Parenthood of Greater Ohio and president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Advocates in Ohio. And so I'm going to bring Iris on in.
Hi, Tameka.
Hi, Iris, with those sharp glasses on.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to introduce you, and so that everyone that's watching will be able to know how amazing you are and what a phenomenal woman you've always been. And I've always looked up to you. I've always thought you were just an amazing woman and an empowered woman. That's what I love the most about you, because you step in, you stride in that power, and everybody knows it. And it's just amazing to watch. So
you're too kind.
But Iris, in her role at Planned Parenthood, provides visionary and collaborative leadership to the organization's healthcare delivery and financial operations of 17 health centers throughout Ohio. As CEO, Iris also oversees government relations, public policy, and patient supporter advocacy. Planned Parenthood of Greater Ohio provides comprehensive health care to nearly 64,000 unique patients and over 120 annual patient visits. Prior to joining Planned Parenthood, Iris was the vice president for university relations at Kent State University. Reporting to the president, she served as the university's chief strategist on all matters related to advancing Kent State University's brand image and reputation, and increasing the public's understanding of the university's academic excellence and economic impact on the community. Her transformational leadership made her a critical contributor to the university's fiscal health by promoting enrollment, fundraising, government relations, and student success. Iris has over 2 decades of experience in the private sector as a corporate executive and entrepreneur. For over a decade, she was CEO of Market Strategies and Solutions, Inc., an international consulting firm that she founded and operated in Japan for 7 years. And when I read that, I did not know that. I did not. I was like, she's just
Well, we couldn't talk about everything while we were on the bus, right?
Oh my gosh, she is just phenomenal. Iris was one of the first American women to independently own and operate a business in Japan. She successfully built a base of major multinational clients, such as the Financial Times, Kraft Foods International, General Motors, Goldman Sachs, Citibank, and Prudential Investments. Iris's corporate experiences included leadership positions in Fortune 500 organizations, including 9 years as vice president and senior director for a $1 billion division of Citigroup's global consumer bank. In multiple roles, she developed and implemented strategies that created a branded global consumer experience for services delivered through worldwide banking channels. Iris's Ohio community service includes current and past board membership with Summa Health Foundation, Area Agency on Aging, Direction Home, First Year Cleveland Executive Committee, United Way, Fund for Our Economic Future, Western Reserve Media, Planned Parenthood Federation of America, and the Planned Parenthood Global. She is a member of the Dean's Advisory Committee for the College of Public Health and School Nursing at Kent State University. Iris is a sought-after speaker and has held faculty positions at Temple University, Japan, Australian National University, California State University. Iris is a Fulbright Scholar, which another thing that I didn't know, a Ford Foundation Scholar, and Consortium Fellow. She holds an MBA and BS degrees from the University of Southern California, as well as an EDS degree from the George Washington University. A lifelong learner, Iris is an alumna of Harvard Kennedy School's executive program on leading change. Student access, I present to you Dr. Iris Harvey. In celebration of Women's History Month, we know that in many ways, women are solely responsible for taking care of their sexual reproduction. And so in this case, we're talking about women students and others that are identifying as women students. And so we're going to get right on into the questions. And so, Iris, what was life like for you as a child? Did you always know that you wanted to pursue higher education? Your journey is quite unique in that you worked in the corporate sector for many years. And so much of your career did not necessarily require that you had higher education to be successful in your career. But what was your motivation for wanting to attain a higher ed degree?
Okay. Well, Tameka, let me start with your good question about what was my life like as a child. It
Yes.
was a happy life. It was a happy life. I grew up in, if you haven't noticed, I have a New Jersey accent. I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey. I'm an only child. I was raised by my mother. And I really believe I flourished under the guardianship and the wisdom of an independent woman, someone who wanted me to be the best that I could and encouraged me in, all creative elements and to have a great deal of confidence in myself. I actually did not start out with the intention of going to college. My
Mm,
mother did not have a college degree. And actually, I lived in a nice Black neighborhood of working class people. And I don't think I knew anybody as a young child who went to college. So what I did discover was along the journey that higher education, offered many opportunities, opens
mhm.
many doors. And, we know that for people of color, often you have to have the credentials
Uh-huh.
in order to even, stand at the door and have the conversation. So
Mhm.
I eventually realized after I graduated from high school that a degree was going to be very important. And I love this program because you're talking about college access.
Yes.
And I I'd like to share with your audience that college access and a college pursuit or pursuit of higher education comes in many forms, right? And
Absolutely.
the thing that is most important for a student is to figure out what is good for them, in terms of what they're interested in learning, what their professional ambitions are, what allows them to balance a lifestyle and to do that thoughtfully. So I did not take a traditional route to college.
Mm.
I graduated when I was 18, fell in love and got married at 19.
Did you really?
I did. So I can tell you all these things we didn't talk about on the bus all those other times. I married a young man that I'd met on the Q's boat ride up the Hudson River. Right, and he had just graduated from college and had done ROTC, and, therefore, before we knew it, he was being shipped off, to Germany, and so we
Mm.
got married, and I followed him there, and it was there that I had time on my hands, and,
Mm.
the University of Maryland has, universities throughout Europe and in Japan,
Oh,
and so
okay.
I was able to do my freshman year abroad, right, at a university in Germany. So first step of getting education in a quite non-traditional way. When we returned from Germany, we moved to Los Angeles.
Okay.
And again, I was slowly thinking about what did this mean. I was working full time, but I took classes at Los Angeles City College, and I saw you also at
Uh-huh.
the City College. And so in a year, I graduated with my associate's degree in business and started looking at what was the next step. And sometimes you work really hard to find the right opportunity, and sometimes it actually falls in your lap. And I like to share this story. I was
Yeah,
sitting on a
absolutely.
bench on campus and eating my lunch and reading the school newspaper, and I saw this ad that said it was a story about applying for a Ford Foundation fellowship,
Mm. Mm.
and the deadline was 24 hours away, right? And I'm like, this sounds really great because essentially what they said is they would pay for any college that you were accepted into.
Wow.
So I stayed up all night, put everything together, and because I was on the campus, I could get transcripts and everything sent. And I sent it off and, sort of didn't think about it again. But when I graduated with the Ford Foundation scholarship, right?
Wow.
And my heart was set since I was in Los Angeles on going to USC, and I had a free ride and into the academic halls I went. I got my bachelor's degree in marketing, so that's my
Yeah.
first love. And having finished that degree, I said, I think I like this. I think I want an MBA. And so
Mm.
I had started looking again at how do you get the resources that you need to finish your education, to do the
Mm,
stage. And the consortium fellowship, and it still exists. So there, I'll say this for young people on their
yes.
way. Its goal was to accelerate the pace of minority students into an MBA program into business.
Mm,
And I remember I applied for that. You know, you have to be pretty bold. I didn't hear anything, and there's a counselor on campus who was supposed to be letting us know. I'll let you know next week and the next week. And you know, I kept bothering him about when was the scholarship, and he complained to a dean that
that
I
you were
was
bothering him?
yes, he
Oh my
complained
goodness.
to the dean that I was being too bossy and too pushy,
Wow.
right? Well, I went to the most senior faculty person in the university and said to him, don't I have a right to inquire about my scholarship? And he says, you do. And so then he went to the dean and he says, tell him to back off, which he did. And, you know, I did get the scholarship. So I say that point to encourage people to be your own advocate, right? Nobody's going to
Absolutely.
advocate for you more than you will. Know your limits, and but also at the same time, take some bold steps and stand up
Absolutely.
for yourself.
Absolutely. Because nobody, and you got to be your own cheerleader too.
Absolutely.
Because
Yes.
nobody, you cannot expect people to cheer for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming a president and CEO of Planned Parenthood and Planned Parenthood Advocates. And can you tell
Yeah.
us what exactly is Planned Parenthood Advocates?
Planned Parenthood Advocates of Ohio is an advocacy organization. So we have our healthcare centers and all of our healthcare, which is like a university, a 501c3, a
Okay.
charitable organization. And the advocacy organization is one that allows us to do lobbying work, advocate with legislators, and also to engage in electoral work.
Okay.
So, you know, you want your elected officials to represent you, right? And the best
Absolutely.
way to let them know that you're pleased or you're not pleased is to be able to impact their presence in the marketplace, you know, also impact what voters think about them. So that's what that is. You know, I will tell you that my journey to Planned Parenthood was not direct. Obviously, I'd worked overseas. I'd worked in, you know, corporate America for a long time. But when I settled here in Kent and I was doing, you know, volunteer work on boards, I was approached by uh, someone on the board of Planned Parenthood in Akron, and they asked me if I would be interested in considering being on the board. And I thought about this a bit, and I thought, you know, they do great work. I've used
Mhm.
Planned Parenthood. They seem to be getting a pretty hard time right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought to myself, this is something my mother would be really proud of me because I'm an only child, right? So
Mm,
she's really proud. And the
yeah.
reason why, you know, I remember in your bio, you said that your mother gave birth to you at 16.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, my story is a generation or so back from that, but my grandmother Evelyn and my grandfather Bill at 14 years old had sex and unprotected, and she got pregnant. And so they had my mother when my grandmother was 15 years old, you know. And the thing about that is, you know, they had to drop out of high school, they had to get married, their families were, you know, heads,
Yeah.
hands on fire, and very upset about it. And it seemed like, you know, this was setting their destiny. And when my mother left the hospital with her mother, right, she should have been given some information about how to avoid a second pregnancy, right? A young
Yeah.
girl, only
Absolutely.
15, but none of that happened. And so 11 months later, my grandmother was back in the hospital giving birth to a second child. And at
Wow.
16, she died on, you know, the delivery table at Harlem Hospital. And that set the tone of my mother's life, her brother, who lived through the birth but was very traumatized, and even my grandfather. So my grandfather was now 16 years old, an African
With two
American,
babies. Yeah.
babies under a year, and so I thought, this is a good place for me, doing the work with Planned Parenthood, so
Yeah.
that people really have access to planning, if, when, how to
Right.
have a family, would be good work. And so I started out on the board, and uh, after a couple of years, we were making some changes, and the board came to me and said, I know you like Kent State, but and so they offered me the opportunity to be CEO, and I took it because I think that along your career you do different things that have a different impact and
Absolutely.
serve different people, and so that's the journey that got me here.
Yeah. Yeah. Planned Parenthood is the largest provider of reproductive health care for low income women, and is a global organization, and serves women and students worldwide. Many people don't know that Planned Parenthood is a global organization.
It's true.
I didn't know that. Can you please speak to the impact that Planned Parenthood has had on a global scale?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I would say that this year we are celebrating our 50th year as a
Really?
global organization. Yes, it's our
Wow.
birthday. Um, the way that Planned Parenthood works around the world is in partnership with local organizations that are care provider.
Okay.
Our goal is to ensure that we partner with organizations that serve people who may not have other choices about healthcare, that are savvy about people's reproductive rights, and
Mm,
are willing to just provide great care. And so we're throughout Africa and throughout Latin America. And
mm,
we work with providers that are healthcare providers, but also legal organizations, with LGBTQ organizations,
yeah.
and really stand for sexual and reproductive health, because
Yeah.
that is, that's the care that no one should be denied.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I saw something about, I think New York has a center that's specifically for LGBTQ uh,
Yes, yes,
individuals. Yeah,
yes,
which is
yes.
really, that's awesome that they get a chance to be in a space where they can feel comfortable, and not have to worry about, being, you know, felt to be unwelcome.
Stigmatized in any way. Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very important to us. Our health centers welcome LGBTQ patients, and we've started offering gender affirming care. And we want people to come in and understand that we want them to be themselves, right?
Absolutely.
And we meet them where they are.
Absolutely. Yeah. Planned Parenthood is also a public health and education uh, leader, really. In the Get Real Sex Education curriculum is a program for 6th through 12th grade students, which means by being a partner with the National Sexuality Education Standards. And can you please talk a little bit about the Get Real program?
Absolutely. Well, Get Real program was developed by our educators and scientists. It is evidence-based. So when we use it, we make sure that we do pre and post tests, and we can see how it's moving the dial on young people. What is so important about this work, and we're the largest provider of sex education across the country, but I'm so proud of the work that we do here in Ohio, because it is so important. Because Ohio, I want us all to hear this, Ohio is the only state in the nation that doesn't have a prescribed way of having sex education taught in the schools. So anybody can see
Really?
it. I said this to a friend on, actually somebody we know, on Sunday. We were talking, and she said, "Oh, I got sex education in the 6th grade." And I just waited. She says, "Oh, but it was the coach and the driving ed teacher who told us to." And that has not changed.
Yeah.
Ohio really um, supports abstinence only until marriage. And so it
And that
discourages.
is so unrealistic. I'm
Yeah, it
sorry to
is
say,
so
it's
unrealistic, right?
unrealistic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so our program, it it teaches young people not just about their body, but also how to have the agency with themselves, right? How
Yeah.
to make decisions for themselves, how to communicate their needs, how to say no, to make sure
Yes.
that consent is understood, how to build relationships and friends, and really how to be young leaders. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I really like about the program is we have the traditional way that our educators go into the classroom and teach. With COVID, we also took it online. But
Hmm.
the other thing, we know that the most validated person in the young person's life is another young person, right?
True.
And so
Absolutely.
whether or not they have the right and accurate information can be problematic. So we also have wonderful programs, what we call peer educators. And
Ah,
what we do is we recruit a group of students, young people, usually in high school, and we give them a year-long internship.
wow.
And we teach them all that they need to know to be a peer educator. And for
Wow.
that, it's a paid internship.
Uh-huh.
And for that time that they are doing their internship, what they do in return is that they peer educate with others. They do presentations in class, at parties, they name it.
Wow.
And so we find that that is, you know, the first person you want to talk to a young person about sex, right, is parents.
Right.
But
Right.
parents can be very scared about, starting
Absolutely.
that conversation.
Yeah.
So we also have parent circles, right?
Yeah.
So to teach parents how also to speak to their young people about sex education. So it's a program that we've been doing a lot of work with. We just partnered recently in Columbus with Nationwide Children.
Ah,
And one of the things that we did in that program was over the summer to teach students life skills and work skills, in the
nice.
context of their growing. We also use it as a curriculum in working with young people in many of the teen pregnancy prevention or infant mortality reduction programs.
Wow.
Celebrate life,
Yes.
celebrate the first year experience. So I'm proud of it. We have wonderful educators, and they also, when we were talking about LGBTQ students and young people in the classroom, they are being denied the
Absolutely.
autonomy to say this is who I am, and
Right.
they get misinformation and
Yeah.
stigmatized, and our programs are designed to debunk that and to make
Yeah.
them feel comfortable and their peers to understand them as well.
So do the Planned Parenthood representatives go into the schools to teach the young people, or do you guys have programs? Is it out of school or is it in school?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Um, Most of our programming has been in schools, but let's see, 3 years ago, the under former President Trump, we were forced to leave Title X program. And Title X is the national program for family planning for people who need help getting
Yeah.
family planning, paying for. And so our ability to go to a school, we were in all the Akron schools, to go in and make it available. Teachers don't know how to teach it either. If
Right.
you're a math teacher, that has
Right.
nothing to do with sex,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so they welcomed us in, so we had to cut back on that because of funding, but we do that, and we do it online. We partner with a lot of organizations, the LGBTQ Center in Cleveland. We have peer groups there, and we'll go just about any place and make
Okay.
sure young people are getting the information they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just talked about Title X and how Planned Parenthood works with people that are in low income situations, and how does Planned Parenthood go about connecting with the community, because it's such a community based organization? How do you all connect with the community?
Right. So there are many ways that we connect with the community. Number one is that our health centers are generally located in areas where there's the people who live there are underserved, where
Mm-hmm.
there is a lack of primary care or underserved number of primary care providers. So first of all, we are there where people need us. We're
Yeah.
located there. The other part of it is we just make sure that people have access in multiple ways. We do telehealth, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Nice. Yeah.
telehealth. We work with the health departments again into Ohio. Legislators said, well, you can't work with the public health agencies, but regardless of that, we still work with many. We have them with in Cleveland is a good example. We worked. We had a mobile van, right, and we would take the mobile van right into the community, and people were very interested in getting HIV and
Yes.
STI
Yes.
testing.
Yes. Yes.
So we are going where people need us, and where we make it most convenient for them to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something that was something that struck me about Planned Parenthood is that from the very beginning, the organization was really focused on making sure that the people of color felt comfortable coming there. And
Mhm.
so with Margaret Sanger's Negro Project in 1939, she actually saw fit for Black doctors and nurses to go into locations where Black people were, so that they could have a person there that they could trust in those spaces. And so that's so important. Can you talk a little bit about Planned Parenthood's continued mission to close that gap of mistrust?
Right, right. So I will always say two things. Margaret Sanger certainly was a pioneer
Yeah.
in reproductive health care. She helped fund the birth control, and she went to jail many times
Yeah.
to ensure that people, women specifically, would have control over pregnancy. And she did recognize, starting in Harlem, the opportunity for doctors and nurses of color to get engaged in and to make birth control, the birth control pill, and other methods available to that community. She did stray from a very admirable vision in
Yeah.
terms of making sure that people had choice, and did turn to eugenics, which was a popular movement. And of course, we know that the essence of eugenics is to pass judgment on people, their
Yeah.
intelligence, and to um, eliminate them, sterilize, a woman or a man, so that they don't give birth and reproduce. So there's two sides of every coin.
Absolutely.
That's her side that we recognize that was what she did then. That is not what we do now. And so, what we try and do is not only to be engaged in our healthcare, but also to engage with communities of color, right?
Yeah.
To understand what their needs are, and to be present. Like one of the things that we spent a lot of time doing, in the last 2 years, is working with many of the social service and advocacy organizations to help people come out and get COVID and get their shots,
Ah.
with, the United, not the United Way, with the Urban League, with the NAACP,
Yeah.
just to be sure that people understand that we do know, all of our research says that people trust us, right? And
Yeah.
so if we knock on a door and say, you can trust this vaccine, that has some weight. And so that's
Yeah.
one of the ways that we've been sure to try and influence what has certainly been a incredible experience that we're all having with COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And Planned Parenthood meant so much to me as a young person. Um, growing up in a low income background. And then also too, like having a mother that I really couldn't talk to about
Mm,
those things. I mean, you would be surprised. I mean, she had me when she was 16. You would think that I would be able to talk to her about it, but it was not easy to talk to her. And so I needed to learn other places.
mhm,
And Planned Parenthood was where I learned. And when I was a student in college, I I ended up getting pregnant when I was in college, and Planned Parenthood helped me figure out what I needed to do
mhm.
so that I can continue on to school. Because I knew at that moment in my life that it wasn't time for me to be a mom,
Right,
and
right.
I needed to concentrate on school. And they really, I mean, all throughout college.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I was a student at Kent State, so I'm an alum from Kent State. And then we
Right,
have the Planned Parenthood that's right down the street
right down the
um,
street.
from the campus. And I
Yeah.
used to walk down there and they would take good care of me. And, um, do you know of any other stories that where young people talk about the impact that Planned Parenthood had in their
Oh,
lives?
yeah, absolutely. We hear every day people talking about what Planned Parenthood meant to them in terms of having access,
Hmm.
and supporting their decision. What we believe is that you have to be non-judgmental. That
Yeah,
only whatever your support system is, if it's your family, if it's your physician, if it's your faith leader,
right.
those are critical decisions that only you can make. And
Absolutely.
so we are absolutely um, always focused on helping you make it and knowing all of your options, okay?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there are many options. And I want your audience to know that that option is quickly leaving us. The Supreme Court in June is probably going to make a decision that will roll back Roe v. Wade and make it very difficult for someone who needs to access abortion care to get it. It's shipping away very quickly. And that's going to be very harmful to people who can't have their own body autonomy. And
Yeah.
if you can't have the right over your own being, right? What is a democracy for?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You were actually in conversation with someone just a few days ago, Miss Faye Waddleton. Is that how you
Ray
pronounce it?
Wallington,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Oh, she's my
Yeah. And so,
hero.
yeah. So, Virtual Voices is a Facebook platform that Planned Parenthood uses to discuss critical topics. And for the last episode, you had such a beautiful conversation with her. And for those that are listening, if you would like to hear the interview, if you go to the Planned Parenthood of Greater Ohio Facebook page, the interview was on there. You can listen to it. But one of the major things that I took away from that was making sure that people like us, people that are empowered women, that we continue to have the strength to go forward, and us knowing that we're making an impact,
Right.
is what is one of the things that keep us going. And do you have any advice for our students or educators or advocates that are listening regarding how to stand in their power? Because that's
Sure.
something that is so, so important.
Well, I think one of the ways that you stand in your power is to imagine yourself where you want to be, right? And to
Yeah.
look at other role models. So for me, Faye Waddington was a role model when I was a young woman. She was a young woman who was the CEO of one of the largest nonprofit organizations in the country, a woman of color doing this. And so ever since I joined Planned Parenthood, I was like, and she's retired, she's doing wonderful. I'm like, I want to meet Faye. I want to meet Faye. And so finally picked up the phone and, we asked her and she said, yeah, but you just have to come to New York and we'll sit down and talk. So
Nice. Yeah.
dream come
Yes.
true. So
Yes.
that is good. I think in our hearts, we know what makes us happy and what makes us sad. And
Absolutely.
um, many times it's people around us that don't make us feel good about ourselves. And you've got to shut out those voices, right? You have to say to yourself, I'm worth it. I'm worthy of, everything that I dream about. I'm worthy of people's good intentions and their good attention, and, to have a successful life. And so my approach to life has always been to thank people for their opinion and keep going if it's not going to help me, right? Thank you. I didn't ask you for it, but thank you, and
Yeah,
keep going, because you need to surround yourself with people who are positive. You need to look for people who will encourage you. People who will be honest with you. Now, girl,
hmm
that was a dumb thing that you did,
hmm
but I have confidence that you won't do it again. I have
yeah,
confidence that you will, um, you know, um, have a um, recovery from it. And so I say, surround yourself with people who appreciate you, who bring value to you. It doesn't have to be monetary value. That could be the value of friendship,
absolutely.
and the value of honesty. And that helps, because we all need others to lean on at some time. We
Yeah,
just need to know who are the right people, and multiple people. No one person can do
absolutely.
everything, can give you
Yeah,
everything that you need.
yeah,
So you pick and choose little things from some people, and you put them
absolutely.
together and you say, all of this makes me feel great.
Yeah, that's like what they call an executive board of mentors.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
yes, an executive board of mentors. Absolutely, yeah. When I was a graduate student and getting my PhD, I was under the naive assumption that my dissertation chair was going to be my mentor for the rest of my life, throughout my journey in
Right,
academia.
right.
I quickly discovered that that was not the case. And I actually got a chance to go to a luncheon that Kent State had, and there was a woman there. She was from Colorado State. She talked to us about the importance of having this executive board of mentors. And so
Mm.
that totally changed my life. I
Oh,
mean,
great.
yeah, that totally changed my life. My perspective about, like you were saying, people give you bits and pieces. Everybody can give something a little bit different, but there's not
Mhm.
one guru. There's not one person that can
Right,
can
not
give
one
it all.
person who can do
Yeah,
it for you. The only person who can really do it for you is you, right? But
absolutely.
you nurture and you absorb the good things from others, but ultimately you're responsible. And
Mhm.
uh, I'm so glad you have your executive board of mentors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you've been on that board for a long time. I just watch you, and sometimes it's interesting when you have mentors. Some people, I call them direct mentors and then
Mhm.
indirect mentors, where people may not know that you're watching them and that you're admiring them and that you're modeling, parts of your life
Sure.
after them. So it's amazing for those that are listening, students, teachers. Please, recommend that you have mentors in your life, because my mentors for sure changed my life for
Sure.
sure. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
And I watched you mentor so many young Black women and men, the students there, allowing them the room and the space to have their own fashion show, right?
absolutely.
And to feel great about it, and to be the stars in it. And we need that.
Yeah,
And sometimes institutions deny us that. And so it's only when there are people like you there for young people can we feel really that they're safe and they're going
yeah.
to be assisted in the way that we want them to be.
That was actually one of the hardest parts of my decision about leaving the university, was because I knew that there were still so many students there that needed what I could give to them, and the
Mhm.
empowerment that I could give to them. That was one of the hardest
I'm
decisions. I remember
sure.
my very last class that I taught, I cried for the whole week.
Oh.
I was in class crying my eyes out, and my students were so sweet. They were bringing me flowers and, all of these things. And it was amazing. And actually, my students empowered me to become an entrepreneur.
Mm.
They did, because I was telling them that I was speaking on a part-time basis. And I said, I think I really like this. And my students started giving me these little notes saying, you know, where Dr. Ellington, you really helped me increase my level of self-esteem, or you really inspired me. I see how hard you work and I know that I can do it too. And when I told them that I was thinking about becoming a speaker, They said, "You would be so good at that."
There you
And
go.
and I told them, I said, "But I don't wanna leave you all." And I remember one of my students told me, she said, "Well, Dr. Ellington, if you leave us and you go and start speaking to other young people, you'll have a global classroom."
Ooh,
And when she said that, I said, "That's
that
it
was
right there."
it. Out the door.
Absolutely, that's it. That is it. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that
Yeah,
is wonderful.
yeah, yeah. Do you have anything that we didn't get a chance to touch on that you might like to talk about, or anything that, that you
Um,
maybe
you know,
learned?
I'm so proud of you to take this leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
To decide that you want to be entrepreneurial, that you want to be giving and caring of young people, and that you're willing to take the risk, right? Because
It is
entrepreneurship
a risk.
comes with risk. And it also comes with having to pump yourself up and have that confidence when no one else does
Mhm,
that
mhm.
you can do this. And it sometimes we're afraid to do that,
Absolutely.
because safety and comfort is something that we all crave, and where some people miss a lot of things by being afraid to step out of their comfort zone, to
Art
take a
Yeah,
little risk. I think every time you take something on and it's risky, you're going to have really great results, and
yeah,
then sometimes you're going to falter, right? And it's
yeah.
going to hurt. But the thing is, you get up, you dust yourself off, you go on
Mhm.
and you try something, and you learn from that. You learn from it and you keep going. And so the fact that you stepped away from a obviously a place where you had given incredible talent, where you could continue to have a good career, but that you
Mhm.
wanted to do it on your own terms.
Yeah.
I'm just so proud of you for doing that.
Thank you. What's really interesting, after I made associate professor, I said to myself, "You know what? I would like to be a dean," because 'cause I'm a spiritual person, and God had been kinda nudging me to get into this entrepreneurial
Mhm,
thing, and I kept
mhm.
saying, "No, no, no," I didn't wanna do it. And so I was like, "Okay, well, you know what? How about this? How about, since now I got tenure, I'm associate professor now, I'll as soon as I get the opportunity to serve as a dean, then I'll step out and I'll
Oh,
leave." Do you know, a month later, I got asked to be the assistant dean for the College of the Arts?
there you go. You have to put it out there,
Yep,
right?
yep, yep, yep. And I knew that that was a sign for me to do this and to leave. And I mean, COVID was the perfect opportunity for me to be able to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you have to do that. When I was in banking, I, did work that was international, but I was ready to get back on the international scene and go out of the country for a few years and do work. And I decided that I wanted to do it in Japan. And I said and I was in the global division, right, where people were sent off all over the world all the time. And so I said to the powers that be, I'm ready. I think I want to go off to Japan and do this. And they were like, no, you don't. And I'm like, no, yes, I do. And they were like, well,
Mm,
you don't speak Japanese. And I was like, well, my white male colleagues, they go off, they don't speak the language. They come back 2 and 3 years later, they still don't speak the language.
mhm.
So that must mean that you can navigate through this. Oh, no, no, no. Well, let's send you. How about going to Brazil? Any place but,
Mm.
Japan. And I had to make the decision. I said, am I going to let somebody dictate to me what I should do? And I decided no. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm leaving.
I know that's right.
I'm gonna take a year and I'm just gonna go where I want. And I'm going to Japan and I will do what I want to do. And I realized that because they kept saying, you've been so successful. Why do you want to take risks? I said, taking risks is one of the ways that you're successful. But why do you think I won't be successful there? And I realized that they were bringing, um, the mood of and the stigma and their way of looking at race. And they
Absolutely.
were exporting it to another country and saying, well, we only sort of appreciate you here. So you go there,
Mhm.
we know they're not going to appreciate you there. And
Wow.
so don't take the risk. And what I found is that when I got to Japan, I found that they were like, well, she's a little different. She started a business. She's sort of very bossy and business-like. Who do we know that is like her? And in their minds, I acted like an American businessman, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so that's how they treated me.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, if you haven't been treated like a white male, you don't know what privilege is. But the more important thing was, as I experienced, in any place you go, there are people who will, have some ways of wanting to, discriminate against you for whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but I had already had all of those experiences in
Uh-huh.
America.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it was banking, if it was housing, if it was, a restaurant, if it was anything. And I didn't have them that frequently, but it didn't bother me because I'd already had it.
Yeah.
And I had white colleagues that were having the same experience. So
Mm.
now it was depersonalized, right? I'm
Ah,
like, oh, okay. It's not me, it's us who are foreigners
yeah.
that
Yeah.
are being a colored girl that they didn't want to do work with. So you have to explore and think outside of the box. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you've done this for
Thank
yourself.
you. And people, when you touched on something really important, that like when you get to a certain status, like you have acquired, what people would consider quote unquote success, they think that you're supposed to just stay right there.
Right, right,
And
right.
I had several people, they were like, well, why would you leave? You're a dean now. Like, why would you, leave? You have this company, you have tenure. Like, why are you
Right.
going to leave your tenure? And I was like, this is not the end for me.
Yeah.
This is not it, I don't know. I've always been a really courageous person. Being a first generation student, I think
Mhm, mhm.
I was built for that. I was
Yes.
built for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't want to hold your time any much longer, but how can people connect with you or connect with what Planned Parenthood is doing?
Certainly. Well, there are any number of ways. Our website is ppoh.org. But you can just Google Planned Parenthood and our national website and put Great Ohio,
Mhm.
and you can get me at you can do. I actually don't know how to talk about my Facebook handle because I only go on and post, right? What I will tell you, if you want to reach me, it's irisharvey.usa@gmail. And
Yeah.
I love getting emails.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. It was
Thank
such
you,
a
Tameka.
pleasure to get a chance to talk to you. And do you live around in the area?
I live in Stowe.
Okay, well, we need to get together.
Okay,
Yes, we need
great.
to make sure that we get together for lunch or dinner or something.
We'll
So,
do that because I've
yes,
got a lot of things we should do together.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Well,
much,
thank you for
Iris.
having me here, and to all of your wonderful young people who are listening to you. This is the real deal. She is the real deal. She will
Oh,
help you, inspire you, and help you have um, a view of yourself that maybe you've been missing. So
wow. Wow.
enjoy.
Thank you. Have a good night, Iris.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So this is the part of the show where I dive a little bit into the research. As you all know, I am a researcher, and anything that I do or any topic that I'm going to be talking about on this show, I want to make sure that I back it up with some research. And I found an article that was published by the Gut Maker Institute. Gut Maker, Guttmacher. I'm going to put their information on the screen so that you all can see it. And if you wanted to look at this particular article yourself, you can do that. But they did a study about adolescents' receipt of formal sexual education, and there is still some disparities, especially when it comes to underrepresented students. So, female students between the years of 2015 and 2019 were more likely to get instruction about their waiting until marriage to have sex. About 67% of the young people that were females, and only 58% of the young people that were males got the same information. While the males, they got more information about instruction on how to use condoms. So that was 60% of males versus 55% of females. And so you can see that there's a little bit of a discrepancy in regards to what people are getting. Black males and Hispanic males were less likely than non-white or non-Hispanic white males to report having received instruction on a range of topics before they first had sex. So preventing STIs, HIV, and so about 70 to 72% of Black and Hispanic males received information, whereas 84% of white males received that information. So it's like, why is there this disparity? Why is there some people getting the information and other people are not? Males who reported that they were homosexual. So for our LGBTQ population, they were less likely than straight males to report that they received information about STIs or HIV. 83% of males that were gay or homosexual versus 93% of males who did not identify as gay or homosexual. Some disparity. So there's things that we need to look out for in regards to teaching our young people about reproductive health. And so it's so important that we continue to support our students and educators and our advocates that are listening. Please, I hope that this message has inspired you, has allowed you to see the importance of reproductive health care for our underrepresented student, because student access is not just in the classroom. Student access is a major part of our everyday lives. And so I wanted to go ahead and end with this episode and just let you know I'm so excited that I have just sold 100 copies of my book, Make for Your Superpower, as well as my book, Be the GOAT, Career Readiness Manual for First Generation Students and Young Professionals. And this episode is sponsored today by Make for Your Superpower. It's such a blessing to be able to have the opportunity to empower people through my text. And so I'm just so excited about schools partnering with me to purchase those books so that those young people will be able to be empowered. And so I thank you all for listening. And if you liked this episode, please go on YouTube and leave a comment for me, Facebook or LinkedIn. If you want to subscribe to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe to my Facebook channel. You can watch, or to my YouTube channel, you can watch the episodes on Facebook, you can watch them on LinkedIn, or you can watch them on YouTube. And we can change the trajectory together of what it's going to be like for our young people to have equitable education. And always remember, let's empower and educate, because there's no success without student access. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.